I was thinking about doing this without the hat, but I just don't see it happening. Hello and welcome everyone to a Rosham Joe Paints episode. The task at hand today is to paint a white Scars Reiver, and the reason that it is even a task at hand is simply because I haven't painted white on many models and I wanted to give it a shot. There'll be a little bit of freehand on the knee pad, but overall it's a pretty simple model provided, the Reiver is not an extensively difficult model. It's simply that, laying that white down nice and smooth. So the finished product is behind me, and I'll put up a shot on screen so you can kind of see it a little bit better. But overall, let's get to it. So I decided to do a White Scars chapter Reiver. Reiver simply because that was the model that I had. And my other Reivers, I'll show you real quick, look like this. And as you can tell, this is not a White Scars Reiver. So it is my Primaris fulminator Reiver. And the reason I wanted to do a White Scars one was simply because, I'm going to be doing more fulminator stuff in the future, and I thought, I don't really have a whole lot of experience painting many colors outside of that blue, other than for like the Necrons and for this one other, the Apothecary here. Now the Apothecary is the only probably successful model that I've painted in white. He has a lot of detail on him and I liked it. So I thought to myself, why not try something else? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And we'll see. The first step is to base coat in Corax White, just spray. And then since we're coming up from Corax White, I'm not going to do the Celestra Gray base coat, but I'm going to start with a layer of Ulthuan Gray, and I'm going to start with something easier to paint, because why not? So I'm just going to start and put this all over all of the pieces which are going to be white, which are things like his gloves, his fingers, the wrists here, obviously. Anything I'm painting right now is going to be white. So that's like basically the whole model. Then we're going to go back and shade. I think the official order of doing things is to do it first in the Celestra Gray and then shade with the Drakenhof. It's a lot of splatter. Apparently I thinned down my paints a little too much and then tried to dry brush. So anyways, putting on the Celestra Gray, then the Drakenhof Nightshade. Instead, this time I'm going to, or instead for my version, I am going to just do a couple coats, obviously thin, as is seen from all the splattering, of Ulthuan Gray, and then I'm going to do the shade and then clean up. I'm gonna do a targeted shade, try to get it just in the recesses where I want it, and then I will clean up with any the Ulthuan again, and then we'll move on to the highlighting of White Scar. So I will now go through this whole model and get all of the portions which need to be white, painted white, and then I will return. So with the Ulthuan Gray and then the shade of Drakenhof Nightshade into the recesses, and then everything mostly cleaned back up. Might end up cleaning it up a little bit more as I add highlights, because when you're looking at this for a very long time, it all starts to look the same. Like you miss things. Like I just saw a little bit more up here. I wanted to try to clean up, but then again, Retributor Armor is probably going to cover that up, or whatever I end up using up there is going to end up covering it up. But like this section right here, I completely missed the leg, so I can go by now and add a little bit of the Ulthuan Gray to clean it up. I could have also came back when I do the White Scar, or the next step is I'm going to put it on black. So, you see extra bits that that you may have missed the first couple times around, but regardless, now I'm going to use a Baden Black in the soft joints. One of the easiest places to show this is simply right here in the very middle. Anything that is soft armor is stuff like the ab section in between the legs. If you want to do the belts, in black. I'm going to do the belt and the straps and all of the other things in brown. So that will be that. But back here, there is a little bit of that armor, which is going to be covered up mostly by the backpack, so you might be able to skip it. You can do the scabbard in black if you feel like it, and then, of course, the gun will be in black. So that's roughly where it's all going to be. So I'm going to do black paint, and then I'm going to come back and highlight with either Eshin Gray or maybe Dark Reaper. Probably Dark Reaper, because the highlight itself, or rather the shade we used, was a blue shade. So instead of highlighting with like an Eshin Gray or a Dawnstone, I mean, I'll come back with Blue Reaper or Dark Reaper since it's another blue color. But another way you can do these, if you don't like painting into all the little armor joints, and you definitely don't want to have to come back and try to highlight just the ridges, is just paint in here with something lighter, like, you know, instead of coming back and highlighting with the Dark Reaper, paint the entire thing Dark Reaper, get the lines nice and clean, and then just water down a little bit Nuln Oil and let it go into the recesses for you, because that's what I do. So that's here, I'll show you an example, is I'm pretty sure that's all I did over here for this guy. That is not a black with then a highlight on it. That is simply a I believe that's Eshin Gray with then Nuln Oil poured in there, and it looks from when you're playing on the table and it's over here and zoom in, you can't tell, but even to me it even looks fine when you are up close. So anyways, I will do all of the black, and then I will do all of the highlights for the black, and then I will do another round of base coats after that, probably the brown, because the brown is the next biggest step for all of this. So all right, black it is. Pretty happy with how the Dark Reaper looks over the top of the Abaddon black there. So now I'm moving on to dry-eyed bark, and this is going to be for all of my leather pieces, which the tiniest one, which I always forget about, is this. It's like a strap that's holding the grenades on here. But this is going to be for everything, basically all of these pouches, these straps along the legs, the straps on the back of the legs, holster, scabbard, more pouches, more pouches, more scabbard, more pouches. Basically anywhere there is leather on this, but the one to try and remember that I always try to go and do first is simply the little piece here, simply because it can be missed so easily. So there you go. That's that piece. I don't think there's actually any leather on any of the other pieces, so it's just going to be, as far as when you're looking at Reivers, it's just going to be this. Oh, and the belt too. Almost forgot the belt, so let's go back and remind myself that the belt needs to be done. So I will go paint the dryad bark on all of these places, and then I will return to do some Agrex Earthshade shading down and darkening of all this. So that is now, what do you call it? Hang on, I forgot the name. Dryad bark, there we go. So that's dryad bark done on all of the pouches and belts and straps and whatnot, including this little piece that I always forget up there, but I didn't forget it. As well as a layer of Agrex Earthshade to darken it down a little bit and to collect in all the recesses. The color we are now going to go and do an edge highlight with is, I believe, Gorthor Brown, and I'm going to be using the brush at a slight angle. And again, I kind of do my hover brush where I miss about 7 or 8 times to start, because I don't want to just go all in on the first one. I want it to be, see, like that, you know, perfect. And by perfect, I mean I totally just put a bunch of paint in between, so I'm going to go back, wash that out a couple times. Okay. And then I'm going to go make sure I don't have a shade's worth of brush, or rather of paint on my brush, and I'm going to use a spot down here. See if that works a little bit better. It did, just barely though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue throughout the entire, all of these edges, and get them the best I can, and then I will clean up with a little bit of brown, the dryad bark that is, and if I end up getting a little crazy and going on the white portions, you know, clean up with Ultha 1 white, Ultha 1 gray, and yeah, just do all of this and all of these and all of those. For the buttons that are in the center here, which like are on the pouches, I'm gonna go back and do those in like a retributor armor, but you could honestly do that in this same light brown, just to have them be a point that sticks out. So there you go. I've now finished all of the highlights with Gorthor Brown, so now what's left is to do a highlight, really fine highlight with Baneblade Brown, and this can be done, or actually this can be avoided if you don't want to do it, but it can also, I mean, mainly just applied to the very bottom corners like this, just at the very, very edges. Also, I have not done this before with leather, or at least not successfully, so trying again, using a very, very fine brush and just kind of taking and drawing a really, really thin line through the leather like this, as if it's scratches. I don't know if you can see that. So just kind of like really, really fine scratches into the leather, just like that. So just to give it a little bit of a wearing type of look. We'll see how that comes out. Hopefully it will look more like scratches and less like I just messed up. So let me finish with the Baneblade Brown, and then we will move on to our next color, which I think is going to be silver. So a little bit of lead belcher coming up. I'm pleased overall with the weathering look and the highlights on the leather. So now I will move on to painting all of these silver. I painted a little bit in here because I don't know what this dot is, but I painted that just because I felt like it, and you know, that's what I'm all about. But I am going to now go and there isn't much that I see that needs to be silver on the main body. It's mostly the arms, but there are these buckles that connect the straps that are here, that are behind my thumb. Let me make sure you can see that. Right here, this buckle I do in silver. You could do it in gold too, just as long as it looks like metal is kind of, I think, what one would go for. So I will paint that metal. There's another one under, can you see that? God, it's such a weird angle. And there it is. See if it's in focus. It is. All right. Now you can watch me mess up in 1080p. So, oh my gosh, and see, this is what I was talking about with going back later and finding out the things you missed as far as cleaning up. Behind this knee pad, that's a lot of shade to be there. So I'll probably have to thin that out. But that's not what this step is about. This step is about getting silver onto the model. And now we're going to pick a very large portion because it's easier to see. The sword. Done. Just like that. Really easy. The gun, I'm going to only paint the ammo clip here, as well as I'm going to get in here and do another piece. I was saying earlier, one of the pieces I always miss is that little piece of leather underneath the grenades on the chest. This, for some reason, on every single model, not just Reivers, but on every single model, I always manage to forget the bottom of the gun handle. But that's fine because it's something really easy to go back and do. So anyways, clip here. I'm going to try to get this this assembly back here, as well as the other side, as much as the handle as I can get without hitting the hands too much. These vents here, I paint the entire ball. I don't know what these are. I don't know much of the lore, but I know that on my other models, they usually have like a almost an armor plating over this, but since these ones don't, I figure make them look a little bit different, kind of leave them bare, just metal. I like to paint the, this is going to be hard to see. Hang on, especially if the camera's not in focus. Let me see if I can get it in focus first. And let me switch to a smaller brush. So this right here, there's lines that go up, and it's almost as if they're, at least to me what it looks like is there's something being held in place and that has like a lid to it. But I know this is probably not what this is at all, and it's just extra detail. But what I like to do is make it look as if there's a couple pieces, like I'll leave these extra pieces white. You know what, let me get you a different Nope, don't have one. All right, you'll have to see when it's done. Anyways, I like to paint the silver. You'll see when it's done. And then on the head, even though you may not see it when it's done, ramble mode engaged. There's a couple pieces behind the helmet that I like to paint into silver, just because. And then there is the parts on the face here, these circles. And you don't have to be super neat when painting them, because we have not painted any of the red, as you obviously know, because nothing is red yet. And also these pieces that go over the ears, I like to paint in silver as well. There is also a piece in his hair, just to, you know, also. And again, have not painted his hair, so I'm just going to paint the whole, I don't know what this is, implant. But basically, I can be as messy as I want, because I'll come back up and clean it later. So that is a lot of steps, but I will show you what it looks like once it's all covered in Nuln oil. So it's going to be lead belcher, and then I'm going to shade everything in Nuln oil, and then I will show you what that looks like, and then we will highlight afterwards. Hopefully some of that made sense. That was a lot of words to tell you now you should paint some silver. So let me get that done and show you what it looks like. So there is the base coat and the Nuln oil shade over all of the lead belcher. Now I am going to do a hedge highlight of Stormhost Silver. You can also use Ring Fang Steel. I think they're roughly the same color. You're just looking for a bright silver that you can put on all the edges here. And this goes on just as any other Edge Highlight would, sparingly, because since we now have the shade of Nuln oil, it'd be hard to go back to lead belcher and fix everything. So try not to make any mistakes. But if you do, just remember, that's okay. If you make mistakes, you can either go back and fix it, or you can try to incorporate it into the look. I always do mine just really clean. I know a lot of people do a lot of good weathering effects, and I just, for whatever reason, have never done that. Someday I might get into that, but however, for now, I do not. So, but yeah, along the edges of all of the blade here, and then remember to pick out all of the, basically any hard lines here. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's a almost like a canister that's inside of there, just to add a little bit of a different look. What I forgot to do is I forgot to go and do a base coat of the Mephistone red. So now when I go back to paint this red later, the portion of the head, I'm going to have to probably reshade just the outsides, maybe with Agrex or shade at that point, since that's what I'm going to shade down the red with. But it would have been nice to have the red done already on the head at least. The head's going to be a whole different portion. I think I'm just going to do almost all of that in just a couple of steps. You can paint the head however you like, but I'll show you how I do it. Anyways, continue on doing all the Stormhost silver on all of the parts that are here. And then I think at that point I will be able to go back and do one of the biggest steps, which I missed. Well, tell you what, I'm going to go back, do the Stormhost silver, finish all that. Then I'll decide what I want to do. So let me get a shot of that. Let me finish all that fun stuff, and then we'll come back with whatever base coat or whatever highlight we're going to do next. All of the silver has been brightened up with that Stormhost silver, so now it's looking nice and shiny. So the next step is probably one I should have taken a while ago, but it's going to be adding Mephistone red, you know, because after all, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Joe, aren't these white scars? But isn't one of the defining features of them is, yes, they're white, but they also have that nice red color on them. So being that this is a Reiver, there isn't actually a whole lot of red I'm going to be able to put on here. So his face mask, not the white portion, but around the ears and around the back of the head, that's going to be red. And then this piece, which I was going to paint in gold originally, but I think making it in red will just help it stand out a little bit. And I'm going to, even though I've seen a lot of people who don't do it, I think I'm going to trace this red just because I do want a little bit of red incorporated in here. And this is my first and only white scar, so if I don't like it, it's not like I have to do it 100 more times. Hopefully it will look good and, you know, everyone will be happy. But so I'm going to paint this skull in red, and also the swords behind it. So that will be the first thing. And then this is a color you really want to be careful with on the white, because red is one, red's hard to paint with sometimes, and two, red's hard to cover up other times. So this is why I should have done this step a long time ago before I got really far into it. The second portion that really stands out on these red scars is I think it's the chapter or the company or something along those lines. It's not the chapter, but it's something, basically it's on the knees here. So I'm going to go back and create like a lightning bolt on the knee. Now there's a bunch of different squads, or I'm going to have to look up the word and probably bloop it on the screen. But basically there's a bunch of different lightning bolt patterns, and I haven't decided which one. But regardless of how it's done, you want to do it so watered down and light that you know, it's almost like you're using just a really thin pencil. Like I barely have any paint on the brush, and you'll come in here and you'll do it and it won't even look like anything, and then you're going to go back and forth. So you'll put the red on, let it completely dry, and then come back with some Ulthuan white. Oh my god, that's the second time I said that. Ulthuan gray, and you will want to then, like, you know, same thing, really thin, but then you're going to clean up whatever lines you had put in here. And it's going to take a lot of back and forth to get it to look right. You can also add, if your freehand is pretty good, a bit of black separating the two, or a highlight of white separating the two, something along the lines, just to define it. But the starting point is, first, unlike me, pick what you want to draw first, and then decide. The other place that they have it is they will have a giant, like, again, a lightning bolt on the other leg. However, this being a Reiver and him not having a giant shin guard like most Space Marines have, I'm not going to end up doing that. So that's why I want to add a little bit of red on the icon to the chest and onto the shoulder. And I'm probably going to, you know, for fun, I'm going to make this grenade. I was going to make it green, but I'm going to go ahead and make the grenade red as well. So that'll be a good touch of red on him. So let me go finish all the red, and I will put Agrax Earthshade over the red, let that dry, and then we'll worry about highlighting. Mephistone red and Agrax Earthshade done, I will now look to Edge Highlight using some Evil Sunz Scarlet. The only part that I didn't apply the Agrax Earthshade to was this down here, simply because I don't think it needs it. I'm going to still highlight around the edge, and then if I feel brave enough, I'm going to try to do an edge highlight of the Wild Rider red on just the very edge of that lightning bolt. But for now, I will look to do my edge highlights of Evil Sunz Scarlets on the shoulder pad as well as the helmet. So edge highlights as usual. You get a little bit on your brush, make sure you don't have too much, and then just drag it down the very outside edge. And then we'll come back later with another color, slightly brighter, in Wild Rider red, and we'll probably hit these corners up a little bit. If you'd like to, you can also do the insides. I'm not going to do them right now. I'm probably going to do them when I don't have the camera in front of me, so that I can, you know, concentrate a little bit better. It's kind of hard to do camera work as well as painting. I have a hard enough time painting as is, right? So anyways, so I'm going to go through, do all these edge highlights, and man, you may not even see this color. I mean, I can see it, but you may not be able to see it on camera. Anyways, do the edge highlights on everything, and I will be back to do, very briefly, the Wild Rider. So the light coat of Evil Sunz Scarlets is now done. Now we're going to go back with Wild Rider red, which is almost like an orange-red color here. And we are going to add a little bit of highlights just on the very corners of... Let me get that in there. Just going to add a little bit to the corners to have those corners be like the sharpest edges, to stand out a little bit more, like that. As well as going to try, and hopefully not fail, drawing an edge on this. Ow! I move my camera here. Drawing an edge right here, just on the very edge of this lightning bolt, like that. And if, again, I think I said this in one of the previous videos, but I like to reiterate lots of things. If you are going to miss towards the, like the inside, if you will. So I can tell my paint is a little bit thin right now. So it's just kind of becoming a puddle rather than a line. But that's fine, as long as the puddle goes towards the red. So I'm going to do this line here, like that. And then all I need to do in order to fix this later is to come back and do a little bit of more Mephistone red in the actual red portion. So I will do all that, and we'll be back probably for some, gosh, what else needs to be done? Retributor gold. We're going to go through gold and a couple of the base coats on the helmet, and then we're going to be basically done. With the highlight of Wild Red now done, I'm going to go back and do something that is finally time to do, not because I waited this long on purpose. I just simply forgot that I had not edge highlighted in White Scar. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do so. All the hard edges, basically everywhere on the model, now need to get a very, very fine highlight of this White Scar paint. And just be very careful when applying it so that you don't hit anything that you've already painted before. Let's see if I can get a line of it on here so you can see. Apparently I'm painting too lightly, or my paints are thinned down too much. Possibly a combination of the two. Let us pick that same piece, but let's go from this side here. I'm going to pick the back here. And just, there we go. Now we're getting there. This step is going to take seemingly forever, but man, it is going to look good when it's done. The whole model, arms, backpack, everything gets a little bit of this. Some parts are going to be trickier, but remember, if you do go in and miss, just try to miss towards the white versus missing towards any of the other colors. That way you're not having to go back and forth between browns, or dipping into the shade that we've already completed. So just takes a lot of patience and some careful brush strokes. So that's why I am now going to turn the camera off, because when I mess up, I want it to be like all people do, in private. So I will come back with what that looks like, which should be pretty good in my mind, and you'll see. All right, we are just about done, and now what I'm going to do is going to cover the parchment of the purity seals in Xandri dust. This should be a simple coat, as it's a base coat. Just as with anything this late in a model, try not to hit anything else, just to make your life easier so you don't have to go back and forth. The two other steps I'm going to do quickly in this video to show are the actual seal of the purity seal in Screamer Pink, and then we will finish up with, I'll finish that off later, finish up finally with some of the Retributor armor on the weapon scabbard over here. So this piece down at the very bottom, as well as this skull, and this piece that I probably should have painted at the very beginning, as it is at the top, and it is going to be less than simple to get in and highlight. But maybe if you do this this type of model, think about doing this step when you're doing all of the brown as well. So that definitely before you glue the backpack on, because the backpack is really the thing blocking me. So I'll finish these up, and then I'm going to apply shades without filming it, and that would be some Reichel and Fleisch shade, really just on the skull and up here at the top, because I could shade this entire piece down, but it's already got, it's not going to dull it down so much, and then when I come back with the highlight, it's not going to really matter. So either way, Reichel and Fleisch shade for the golds, and then we are going to put some Nuln Oil on the purity seal, and Agrax Earth shade on the parchment. So I will go do that, then we will highlight. With the shade dry, we're going to go ahead and apply our edge highlights of Liberator Gold first to the scabbard here. There's a slight dot right there, just like a raised rivet, if you can hit that. The skull, just across kind of like a brow and the nose, maybe one line across the top just to brighten that portion up. And then an edge highlight at the top here, like so. The other highlights we're going to be doing are Screamer Pink, Pink Horror that is, on the pistol, Purity Seal, which was the only one on this this particular model. With a dab here on the helmet. I'm on focus. A dab there on the helmet, or helmet. It's like a skull face here. I don't need that much paint. And then kind of around the outside, just like this. Really messy. There you go, perfect. Just to give it a little bit of color. And then final is a little bit of Ushabti bone as an edge highlight across this. If you want to come back and use some Screaming Skull, you can. In that case, I would say to, in fact, go across the fronts here in the lighter portions, leaving the recesses dark. It's like it's almost raised a little bit just here and here and there, something like that. And then you can come back and use the what did I just say? Screaming Skull as a highlight for the edges. So I will finish those up real quick, and we'll move on to the final step, which is going to be the flesh of the head and the hair of the head. So we are now on to what should be the last step, which is painting the flesh and the hair. I'm going to base coat the face and forehead in Rakarth Flesh. Then we will shade this with some Reikland Flesh Shade. And then the next portion is the hair, and I decided to give him like a gray hair look. So he is getting some Mechanicus standard gray hair here, and then will be covered with a wash of Known Oil. And then after the highlights are completed, we should be done. I'm just going to paint the base just a black for now, as I don't have any white scars, and so I'm probably not going to do anything fancy for this base, not at least in this video. Normally, I don't do anything fancy anyway. It's simply just a matter of using some of the pre-made terrain paints, but I'm not going to do that. So let me finish these, and I'm going to put on the shades as well, and then we will come back and we will attempt to put on some minor highlights and call it a wrap. Something I didn't mention is before you do the layer of Known Oil to darken it all down, if you throw in a much brighter gray like Administratum, so this is Mechanicus Standardus, and then like an Administratum or a Dodstone, or you could even use like some white or something like that, and you make really fine lines, and then you end up shading all together. I don't know, it appears that it makes a little bit of a more natural hair. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do now, and I say attempt because that's what it's all about, is just, you know, not guaranteeing anything, is to now go back again with that same Administratum gray and just add a couple points of really, really light hair. So it's got like, you know, like 3 different kind of, like a salt and pepper kind of looking hair, I guess. So I'm not going to highlight the edges like you would normally do an edge highlight. I want to just add in a couple, maybe too many, maybe not enough, who knows, depends on your preference, points of lighter color in this black to really make it look like he's graying versus he has, you know, pure gray hair or pure black hair, or as if he painted his hair on this morning, which is what I'm doing for him right now. But the goal is to try and make it look something kind of like that, where, you know, it's natural enough, and from 10 feet away you want to be able to tell anything. So last paint is going to be for the highlights on the face, and that is Kislev. Nope, it is Flayed One Flesh, and this is just going to be barely dotting something like the eyebrows, or rather the ridge of the eyebrow there. Make them look nice and scary. And there's a raised line here, and I'm not sure what that is. I can't tell if that's another piece of metal, as is over here in his hair. But you know what I'm going to do is I am going to, I think, do just, I think I'm just going to leave it. Nah, whatever. We'll paint it like this. There. Now he's got like a scar on his face too. Who knows? All I know is I'm not a fan of painting flesh, but I believe a little bit there, a little more on that brow. I believe that's done, because from way over here, looks fine. All right, I'm gonna assemble this and I will wrap it up. And with that, we come to the end of another Rosham Joe Paints episode. This was a lot of fun, actually a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. There is so much back and forth between painting the white and then shading it and then making sure your lines are nice and crisp, and then trying to edge highlight as well, even if you do it in the correct order, I imagine. But that doesn't take away from it. I do have to say to anyone out there who paints white scars or any sort of like, I think it's like not Crimson Fist, the yellow, any orange, any majority light color that goes on really, really thin, hats off to you. Not right now because my hair will go everywhere, but hats off to you, just simply because that is such a task to do to an entire army. The second thing is anyone who does like Salamander's work or any other thing that is beyond that as far as freehanding on, not only just a squad, but an entire army. Again, like there's so many people out there who are talented, much more than I. But this is how we learn, this is how we get better. If you liked what you saw today, go ahead and click subscribe, go ahead and click the bell, click the comments, there's all kinds of clicks. Just click whatever you can click, and hopefully it'll help out. Let me know if you have anything specific you want to see done. It's really the draw here is if you've anything specific you want to see rambled about. How about that? And if not, I'll just pick out something on my own, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.